Hello everybody and welcome to this episode of Small Business Small Talk. I am your host, Christy Smallwood. I am the Chief Strategic Guide of Eagle Eye Strategies based in Louisville, Kentucky. And I'm also the originator of this wonderful podcast. And I say wonderful not because it's me, but because of all of the people I have gotten to know through interviewing them for this podcast. Little housekeeping on the front end that I tend to forget, so I have to go back and record this again because I forget about the housekeeping on the front. Actually, it's not housekeeping, it's the go do this right now. Make sure as you are listening or you're watching on the channels, you subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. We are starting to do these more weekly, and so I'll have all of that way you get notified. You become part of the tribe. You get to know, hey, there's a new episode. So whether it be an audio channel or video, you can actually find your favorite if you just go to the website, which is smallbusinesssmalltalk.com. No spaces in between. It's smallbusinesssmalltalk.com. Let's say it together. smallbusinesssmalltalk.com with your host, Christy Smallwood. Okay, so with that, there's that. And I also want to thank my sponsor partner. They don't get near enough love sometimes. And I say that kind of jokingly because they get love all the time in our area. But it's the Chamber of St. Matthews. They have been great partners for me over the years. I'm helping to get the word out about my business, to be involved in the community as a business, and honestly give me a social life through my business because they've provided this atmosphere of connecting both business and community together. So if you out there are looking for a group to be a part of, check with your local Chamber of Commerce and get tapped into all of the things that they have available for you to be able to grow your business, because you can. Making connections is one, but there's all kinds of other resources available. And if you can't find one local, connect with me. We will take you. We love to have people in our chamber from all over the place. We aren't just local, we're region wide. So we'll take it. We like people. We'd like to see people succeed. So with that, that's about my sponsor partner. A little bit about Small Business Small Talk specifically. When I started this podcast, I wanted it to be something where you could see value in it, in the fact that we're going to tell you how to do things better in small business. Well, it's evolved from just that. When you are listening to Small Business Small Talk, you are hearing somebody else's story. And there's going to be something in somebody else's experience with what they do in their business, things that they've learned, how they got started. It might be something you learn about the thing that they have to offer. You're like, oh my gosh, I really need this for my business, or I've never thought of that, or how they've learned from something. So Small Business Small Talk has now become this, well, it's a community of small businesses that you're not alone in any struggle that you may have. You have a place to be able to learn from each other, to get inspired by each other. Like, yes, you can do this. And there's a lot of great things that can happen just from a small business perspective. And so I'm always excited to be able to meet new people, to interview more, and I'm honored to be able to get to be the person to interview somebody whose first time sharing their story is through my podcast. And so I encourage you guys all to, listen and share with your friends. Don't keep these guys' story secret. These guys and gals, they need some loving out there. So the best thing you can do for small business is share the love. And the easiest way to do that is share this episode. So let me give you a little hint on my guest today. So let's talk about my guest. Jeff Murphy is the president and CEO of ECT Services. ECT is based in Louisville, and he's going to share that they've been in business for 40 years. He is the second owner of the business, and he's taken and run with it, that's for sure. I love everything about our interview today. We went to places I have not had conversations about before, and I just loved it. Did I say I loved it? I did love it. It was fun. It was fun for me, as you are going to be able to tell, because I kind of got not I got the proverbial smacked upside the head about not letting my fear stop me from doing something bigger in my business. I'm like, great, thanks. Thanks a lot, Jeff. Because it's been a theme lately for me, and so it solidifies that fear does play a part in how we make decisions. It shouldn't, but it does. But we also talk about all kinds of things. So we get a little background on ECT Services, which, by the way, what they do is they help business owners relieve that frustration of taking care of their building in such a way of setting up systems that will help automate security, energy, efficiencies, things like that. Like basically having your building work for you instead of you work for the building. And it helps a lot with that. We talk about some of those things that are beneficial for businesses as far as what his business offers and does, which is always a thing that we're going to talk about on Small Business Small Talk, because it should be able to give a platform for somebody to share what they do with their business. But I also want to know, like, why'd you do this? Like, why did you pick this? What got you into it? And so Jeff shares the story of that too. For those that are in the region, homeboy he went to Purdue and then IU, and I was like, whew, Boilermaker and Hoosier. That's amazing. I got a two for one right there. And I love that he's both a drummer and a process guy. And if you guys know bands at all, drummers are not the most detailed people. They are in their own little world sometimes. But Jeff is not. And I love the love that he has for his team and his family. And it's just a great conversation. Let me focus on one specific area. When we start talking, you're going to hear a lot of things that come out about strategy and culture. I admire this conversation so much because it is a lot of what I do with my own business. So I resonate with that tremendously. When he talks about his team, his love for his team is over the top evident. And I just can't tell you how much I appreciate that. Especially as a trainer, as somebody who comes in and trains teams, to know that owner has the team first in his mind of how can I serve them better. Amazing. I love that leadership style. I aspire to be like that with my own team. And we talk about culture and we talk about strategic plans, having a strategy in place. Like there are times when I work with my clients and I work out in general, my business is strategy first. And what that means is more than just helping you develop a strategic plan. I help you learn how to be strategic, because the plan that you may make is gonna need to have flexibility within it. If you are staunch, like this is the plan and this is all we're gonna do, well, then you might as well keep that shit in a binder and keep it on the damn shelf, because you don't know how to be strategic to actually get a strategic plan accomplished. So this is where I come in, and I love that we've had these conversations that Jeff brings up some of that stuff. So without further ado, I have talked enough. Here's my conversation with Jeff.
Awesome. We are live. So I'm very excited to have as my guest today, Jeff Murphy with ECT Services. Now, okay, so we're just jumping right in because Jeff, I looked at your website and it's like what we do. We help building owners or operators who are frustrated, concerned, or worried about high energy costs and loss of valuable products or materials, and the safety of their team members. Is like, wow, I like somebody who starts out with we help those people who are frustrated.
Well, they are. Yeah, for sure.
So we'll get into your business in a second, but you, Jeff, are the president and CEO of ECT Services. Does that mean you also started this thing from scratch? Tell us the backstory of you and how you got to ECT Services.
Yeah, we're actually celebrating 40 years this year.
40.
40.
Nice.
So the answer is no, I did not start it.
No.
But a couple by the name of Larry and Kathy Fisher started the business back in 1981, and just a phenomenal couple. Really had a heart for energy savings because that was right in the heart of the energy crisis. I don't know if you remember back in 79, 80, 81.
I was somewhat aware, yes.
Yeah. So, and I remember that as a kid, but they were right in the heart of that. And so Larry actually had a vision for starting a company that would help businesses save energy. So that's how we got started. I got associated with them back in probably 2006, 2005 timeframe when we were involved in an association called ASHRAE. And that's the American Society for Engineers in Refrigeration and HVAC.
Okay.
And so we met up then, kind of connected, and I liked them a lot. They liked me. They were looking for an exit strategy, and I was looking for something to lead down the road. And so we finally connected, and I actually went to work for them in 2010 and bought the company in 2013.
Nice. So what was your background before ECT?
So I've had kind of an interesting background. I'm a double E by degree from Purdue, which is a duck out of water here, right?
Boilermakers.
Yeah. So, and then I went to IU and got an MBA as well. So I've got that technical and business side together. I jumped into what was known back in the early 80s as the process control industry.
Okay.
So a little different than the HVAC and some of the security industry, but technically similar in a lot of ways. And in fact, those industries really grew out of process control.
So process control, did that also have a big influence like on the distribution industry, logistics?
Very much so. Yeah, very much so. And so if you think about our area, there's a ton of manufacturing here.
Mm-hmm.
All of those manufacturing organizations have systems that run those operations, that control those processes.
Yeah.
And so I was involved with that industry as it was really emerging in the mid 80s. And then made a jump into actually the logistics industry for a few years, helped lead a couple of those organizations here in Louisville, and then jumped in the HVAC world, kind of back into the technology side of things.
Nice. So you are definitely the engineer mind, the architect of the bunch. I like details. Do you dream in spreadsheets?
So I'm a little weird. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I've got this double mix. I went to engineering school because I thought technology stuff was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But what I really think is cool is I'm a drummer, so I'm really creative.
Yeah.
I did okay in engineering school, but when I went and got my MBA and nailed that, I'm like, okay, that's where I really belong, is in leadership and in business. And then I really use both sides of my brain, that technical side and the creative side. But where I'm a duck in the water is really on the strategy, the vision, the direction, and how do we creatively get there?
Yeah. Okay. So just from your background alone, I could tell that you are really good at understanding the rhythm of processes.
Oh, good pun with the drummer. That's great.
You can keep that. Like hand that off to
That's
your
awesome.
marketing person. So, okay, now let's talk a little bit about ECT Services itself.
Mm-hmm.
And what it is that you do, because having a business that's been in business for 40 years is a big deal.
Yeah.
Especially if you've made it, especially after 2020, anybody that's still in business, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Especially because you're working in buildings, right?
Correct.
You're in buildings. People weren't really in buildings much except in their homes. Now you focus on commercial, right?
Correct.
So tell us a little bit about what ECT is and does.
So, I mean, we're just super blessed, as I mentioned, to have been really founded and started by a couple who had a real vision for this energy management side. Several years into that, one of their clients had said, well, you're already running wires for building automation and energy management. Why don't you do our security systems? And so they started in the security business as well. So as I got to learn what they did in 2010, and I say we took it over in 2013, there's a team of us that actually jumped in to lead the business. We were really blessed with really a nice foundation and a platform of technology and a beginning list of customers that we could really start to work with. What we really did from that point was really looked at what are our customers really wanting? What do they need? And what they want, and again, we're commercial only, they're wanting those buildings to run, right? They want as little maintenance, as little aggravation, frustration to deal with as possible. So our whole thing is to provide them with an excellent experience to where they can kind of let go of the wheel and let that building operate and be very efficient. So again, what we do to really nail it down, we put in systems that run the HVAC systems, whether that be chillers and boilers and air handlers and all that sort of stuff. And we put in security systems, which would be video surveillance, access control so you can get in and out of the building. Also some systems that actually track people movement so that I know how well my building's being utilized. You talked about 2020.
Oh, so you guys would be the ones that, like, if I walk into a room, that little thing up in the corner would then be censored, like, hey, somebody in this room needs like cooler air or something like that.
Right. And it would post, Christy's here. I'm kidding. Stuff like that. No, but you're exactly right. Some of those kind of things, but it's becoming way more usable than just to let you in the door or just to turn something on or open something. Now it's really starting to get into how well am I utilizing my building? So again, you mentioned 2020. Everybody went home for the pandemic, so to speak. One of the largest things we did over that time frame with a very large customer in Louisville was to determine their utilization over the past 5, 6, 7 years of the facilities they used in downtown Louisville. And what they realized is about 20% of it wasn't even being used when they were fully in there.
Oh.
So they were able to come back and really right size, if you will, their use of the space. And really understand, okay, here's how this space is being used. We need to change how we're configured so that we can make the most of that. And they saved a ton of money being able to do that.
I mean, I have a home office, as those that are watching the video can see, we're at my home office. And I know that every inch matters here because I'm trying to run the business and production studio and everything, and just in this home off, like this little square right here. I can't imagine. I know if I have a wasted space, it affects my bottom line. Sure. So if there's that 20% of building space that we've either bought the building and we're paying on, or we're leasing this building and it's everything in it's still our responsibility, that money just goes poof out the window. And somebody is getting cut somewhere because if we're not utilizing it, we still have to pay for it.
Right.
Okay, so that's helpful to know. So what are some, because you mentioned energy management, help me understand how energy management helps businesses? Because that's kind of like in my small business area, we got a lot of business owners that sometimes they have a warehouse, or they've owned their own space and they've kind of run it out of a small house, like in the middle of a neighborhood kind of thing. And then you've got others who are leasing space. So what does energy management do to help a business?
Yeah. So whether you're leasing or owning or whatever it is, there's usually some cost to you as a business. You're either paying those energy bills even as a tenant, or you're paying those energy bills if you own the building for sure.
Yeah.
Right? So either way, there's a utilization there. Very simply put, we help turn things off. I mean, that's the deal, is that if I'm not using it, turn it off, and so it's amazing how in a building, and if you look at downtown Louisville on any given night, how many lights are on? Now, again, we've got LED lights today, which really lower that load tremendously. But there are things that are running that don't necessarily need to be running. For example, I'll give you a personal example. My wife and I were just talking about this last night. It's summer, okay? We love to sleep in the cold, so we like it to be really chilly at night. So we turn that thermostat down to 70 degrees. Well, for several years, we just kept it at 70 degrees on our second floor all the time. And it's like, okay, why are we doing this? During the day, we're gone. So we've set our thermostat, programmed it to where it's at 76 during the day. And then at about 5 o'clock, it starts to turn down so that by bedtime, it's at 70 degrees. And then it turns back up during the day. So we're saving that energy, if you will, during the day rather than it being 70 degrees all the time. Right. And believe it or not, that savings is huge. And now multiply that times millions of square feet. Certainly hundreds of thousands of square feet for some of these larger clients in downtown Louisville. It's big money.
Well, and not only that, but, if you're saving energy, you're saving the planet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
It's very green.
Green thing
very
to do. So. Okay,
so
when I go to the grocery store, and I noticed a handful of years ago that the frozen aisle section, lights only come on if I'm walking down the aisle.
Right.
Like, I thought that was the coolest thing ever at the time. Now it's just annoying because sometimes the lights have a delay and I'm like, turn on the light. So that falls under that whole have a system to help turn off that. Okay, gotcha.
Exactly what that is.
Okay.
Exactly what that is.
Fantastic. So Okay, so let's talk about you for a second again. Let's go
Okay,
back to
all
you.
right.
You mentioned your wife. What's family like for you?
I have one wife, which is
That's
a
good.
cool thing, right?
Most men can only handle one at a time.
Absolutely. And she's phenomenal. She is a nurse.
Oh, nice.
An ENT.
God love her. Yeah.
Absolutely. So she obviously was challenged during the pandemic,
Absolutely.
furloughed for a little while, but then was very necessary to get back in the game very quickly. And so,
And she's always challenged this time of year anyway.
oh, absolutely.
It's
Especially
right up her
right?
season.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and so we've got two grown kids. A son and his wife live in Maryland. A daughter and her husband live in Floyd Snows.
Okay.
So no grandkids yet, but two on the way.
Ooh, congratulations.
So, thank you.
Any fur babies?
No.
Dogs.
I'm with you. No, we have one grand dog, so to speak, but no pets. We used to have pets when the kids were growing up, and just once they grew up and did their thing, we kind of said, hey, we'd like to have our freedom and go and do. So anyway,
right. That's the biggest reason I don't have pets right now is because I'm like, I just want to be able to go randomly and not have to have them set. So I'm on an upstairs apartment here, and we talked in I'll call it the proverbial green room, the things that happen before we hit record, about that poodle that's downstairs. And I always know when his mom's not home because he does not like it when his mom goes away. So again, I apologize if anybody's hearing the poodle today. If it starts to bark, you'll know his mom's not home. Okay, awesome. So what are some things that you really enjoy about what you do with the business?
So probably the coolest thing for me, I mentioned a little bit earlier, I really enjoy the technical and business mix. Mm-hmm. But when I say that, what I find I get the most joy from it is watching our team do things we haven't done before and watching them grow through that. It's just been really exciting to see how our culture has continued to develop. And a couple things that we did when we bought the business, it was a small business that we purchased. One of the key things that we wanted to focus on was growing service and growing a leadership team. And so we really grew a team that was bigger than the business, so to speak, so we could grow into that.
Sure.
And it's been fun to watch those leaders develop and to watch them develop their team. And one of the phrases that we say all the time is, I get asked this question quite a bit. How many employees do you have? Right?
Sure.
Standard question. I said, well, I have a funny answer for that. We have none, but we have 45 team members. And we really say that with all due sincerity, in that we treat our team members like team members. We're all part of the team. If you ask for a picture of our org chart, it's upside down. And the reason it's upside down, and I truly believe this, I'm not the one out there kicking it every day, right? These guys are out there helping those customers. They're running cable. In the middle of a pandemic, they're getting called out, having to wear a mask for 8 hours while they're helping somebody get their system functioning and that
dealing with all of the emotions that go with that.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and again, so I really enjoy watching our team members develop and grow. And it was really tough during the pandemic. One of the things that we dealt with that I really wasn't expecting to deal with, no one would, all this stuff that was happening in downtown Louisville, 4th Street area and all of that, we were getting calls every single day to help with video surveillance systems, making sure buildings were secure, just because there was a lot of violence and a lot of issues related to that. And so our team was at harm quite a bit. And so it was just really good to watch how brave our team was, to watch them develop and take care of those customers.
That is fantastic, because as you bring that up, it's been well over a year, right? Well, actually, for all of that episode, it's been at a year, and already it's like the dust has settled, and I was like, oh wow, when you think about what you went through, not just with a pandemic, but then you have the what I'm going to air quote it, protests, so that in our community, there was a lot more than just a pandemic going on. And to know that you guys did bravely go out into that, kudos to you. And I love how you've talked about culture. And that is one of the first things that you were talking about with your team. Why do you think culture is so important?
Well, again, we talk about this every month at our all hands on deck meeting, and it's really a safety meeting that we have with our team. Is that we have a slide that says, "What's the most important thing in the business? Customers. What's the most important thing in the business? Team members." They're right there equal, because we don't have any customers, we don't have anything to do. But if I don't have any team members, I don't have anybody to serve with, right? So we've got to have both of those things. So to be able to say that and reinforce that culture so that we're all in this thing together, and that, hey, Jeff, I know you're the CEO, but we need you to come out and bring us some parts, and for me to say, well, I'm the CEO, I don't do that. That's just the wrong culture. We're all in this together to help not only the customer, but to help each other be successful. So the reason I think it's so important is, I want people to want to be here. I always hate that issue. In the past, I've had a couple leaders who have used this phrase, RHIP. Rank has its privileges.
What? Who's
really?
Who says that now?
I know. With their own parking space and all this stuff. And in fact, very early on, it was interesting. There's a parking space up front that used to be utilized quite a bit by one particular individual. And so they said, no, that Jeff's space is reserved for Jeff. And I'm like, oh, no, it's not. There is no space reserved for me. We're all in this thing together. And to me, that's really critical.
That is back to, again, who says that?
I know.
Who has the gall to even say that nowadays?
Yeah.
Rank has its privileges. But I'm with you. If it weren't for, because I'm new into bringing on a team. So I'm finally at a place in my business where I'm past the point of just getting some third party help. I'm actually bringing on my team. And I did a video of, here's what you're getting yourself into, and here's the expectation, and here's what we're about. Like totally transparent with everybody that's coming in. But I love the whole, we are all team members.
Mm-hmm.
And, around here we have a superhero theme going on, if you couldn't tell.
I love it. That's awesome.
One of the onboarding questions is, what is your favorite superhero? So that way I know I could reinforce that to them individually. But then we're all part of the same team. We have to be able to, we all have our individual gifts and talents that we're bringing to this whole thing, but we're all going in the same direction. We're all following the same mission, and reinforcing that, like you said, is a big deal. What are some other things? I know you said the monthly meeting, but what are some other tactics you may have that you reinforce this, like on a daily basis? How do you reinforce that?
Well, again, it's interesting, and it may seem like a small thing, but we get hung up in the culture and the world that we live in, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times we'll be in a discussion, and as a leadership team, and in one of our leadership meetings, and somebody will say, well, I'm really trying to work with our employees. I'm like, time out. You just used the wrong word. So I mean, we don't have any employees, remember? Oh, yeah. Now, we don't do that so much anymore, but very early on, just reinforcing that term just makes people think differently. And so what I find now is somebody may accidentally use that, because when you're out, people will still use that term. And it's even a legal term that sometimes you have to use. But I'll see the team leaders catch themselves say, I meant team member, so those small things are really key. Also, coming out of this pandemic with all of the awareness that's really come about through the protests and all of the things that have happened.
How to be more aware.
Right. I think there's been some healthy stuff happen there. And so we've all attended a variety of, diversity, equity, and inclusion seminars, because again, we're mostly white guys. I mean, it is. Now, we're not all, which is great.
Right.
And, we've got a handful of women, and we've got a handful of minorities in our team. I say this, and I don't mean it to come across negative. I really don't care from the perspective of what your background is and all those things are, or, what you lean more toward or don't lean toward or whatever. We're all here to do a job, to take care of the customer.
Exactly.
I do care from this perspective that I want you recognized. I want you honored. I want you, what's the word I want to use?
Maybe validated?
Celebrated.
Celebrated.
Celebrated is what I was trying to think of, just because you're part of the team, and what you do and what we do for our clients is what's important. So that's a challenge for us, though. And so we really try to work at that, especially being small. But I think any company, works through that. And so we're really excited about what's happened recently as we continue to grow we've been able to attract, a more diverse group in our team.
Well, I applaud you for this effort greatly, because I know the diversity conversation is necessary and very sensitive.
It is.
Because one of the things that I've had the honor and privilege to do is be a moderator for the St. Matthews Chambers Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion series. I'm only the moderator. So before we talk to each of these panelists, my personality comes out a little bit. But they've all said, I appreciate your directness and your willingness to be like, they've been very wonderful about me saying, look, I am just the token white girl here. I don't know anything, and I'm coming to it asking questions so I can show people what it's like to just ask a decent question for the sake of, I want to know more. I have no input. I simply want to learn. And having that stance has made those events, those series pieces really well received.
Yeah.
Our panelists have enjoyed it. I've enjoyed getting to know them a whole lot. And now I've got a whole nother handful of people I can tease all the time if I want to. But it's been interesting also for me, because the diversity, equity, and inclusion part also includes, so I have a young lady. I think she's fantastic, but I knew her from a previous client who had brought her in part-time. And I knew all I knew about her, she was young, she was willing to learn, and she had a great work ethic because she was showing up.
Awesome.
So when my client's business was an event production, they, in the first week, were just decimated because of 2020. So Gabby, unfortunately, had to, go work with her family for a while. And when I talked with the organization that she was kind of getting placed through for employment, they brought her face showed up on the screen. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's Gabby. They're like, you know Gabby? Yes, I know Gabby. I think Gabby's wonderful. Like, catch me up with Gabby. What is she doing? So they shared, and that she was going back to school, and everything that Mary Reed was telling me was, oh my gosh, I need Gabby on my team. I need Gabby. I need a Gabby. So we met and we talked, and she is in a wheelchair.
Oh, wow.
So she walks just enough, and she made it upstairs, and the only time I ever make her do that. I didn't even make her do that. They came into the office willing to do it. We joked around about her previous employers because they were a hoot and holler and a half. So we laughed and all that kind of stuff. And then, I walked her through just the technical details of things I would want her to do, video production being one. And she's like, yeah, I can do this. They're like, is it okay that, we have this arrangement? Like, they were very sensitive about, she's in a wheelchair. And this is the most tactless thing I think I've ever said to somebody, but she took it very well. I said, okay, let me ask you this. Is you being in that chair going to keep you from making me look good in the business? And she's like, no. I said, are you still going to get the work done that needs to be done in a week? She's like, yeah. Then why do I care if you're in the chair?
Bingo.
And she's like,
Bingo.
Oh. And Mary Bree's like, nobody's ever said something like that. I'm like, honestly, because I think we do get too, like, we don't know what, we're just too sensitive.
Oh my, yes.
And because I tend to just like throw it out there, and then like, it's just ask forgiveness later. Like, let's work it out, but let me just be direct first. Yep. And let's see where it goes. And that was really good on that end too. And I have a lot of Black and brown friends who just like, girl, you ate right. Like, but I want to know. Right. So the diversity thing, I again applaud you and your team for developing that as part of your culture as well, to just make it a part of the team culture. Like, this is who we are and what we do. And we're coming together as this wonderful team to help relieve the frustration of these business owners for security and all of that kind of stuff. So, okay. I know I'm kind of really going deep into your leadership skills here. What inspired you to do those kinds of things? Did you have a mentor? Did you learn it from somewhere? Did this be like, no, we're going to work like a band and you have this role and that role? Like, how did this come about for you?
Well, I think it's a mixture of a number of experiences. And I have a very strong faith, and a number of us on the leadership team share that faith. And if I'm really going to live that out, it's really all about love. Right?
Oh, gosh,
and how many people use love in business, right? But the reality is, we're put on this earth to love each other. And
Absolutely.
So, I know this isn't what we were trying to get into, but it's the reality of if I'm going to do that, I need to show that. And the way I show that is acceptance and honor and, and helping people grow.
It's almost like you had a good example from somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. So, I have to give credit to my parents as well. They're very loving people. And again, my wife, but
she's phenomenal.
Again, absolutely. I said that earlier. And then of course, this leadership team really believes in the same fashion. You said something earlier that the triggers, we've got a phrase that we say, it's amazing what happens when you show up. There's a lot of different ways we show up. And again, that's on a slide every single month because there's so many stories we have in how we show up. One of the ways that I learned something was I genuinely wanted to understand the perspective from one of our Black buddies that works with us and team members, and his name's Kevin. And I just said, Kevin, help me understand all this stuff that's going on. I want to see it from your perspective. And I said, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. There's not a right answer here. I'm not trying to have you tell me the right answer. I want to understand. Here's the coolest story he told me. He said, you got a son, right, Jeff? I'm like, I do. He goes, did you ever have to tell him when he was learning how to drive to make sure that if you ever get pulled over, you put your hands on 10 and 2 and don't move because you might get shot? And I'm like, no. I told him to respect the officer, but I never went that far. He said, just think about that. It's a different perspective. And I just appreciated the daylights out of that story. So it's that kind of stuff that I think, and then again, Kevin and I shared that faith as well. So again, he sees us trying, and I think we're not going to be perfect at it. We're human,
exactly.
Right? We're not going to be perfect at it, but I think the attempt and the energy that we put into, trying to make this work and trying to make it better is worth it.
I love that. Okay, so I typically, especially all of my new people, I will ask, so what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Probably the best piece of advice I've ever received is don't take yourself too seriously.
Oh, I love that.
I'm a joker anyway. So sometimes and my wife has a phrase she uses now, which says, everything doesn't have to be funny, Jeff. Which is a great phrase too, to kind of balance it, right? But I think sometimes we take ourselves so seriously that, I've got to be this and I've got to do that and I've got to have this and I got to achieve, and I'm very goal oriented, and those of us that are type A and goal oriented, if we don't achieve our goals, we beat the daylights out of ourselves, and that comes out in the wrong culture in those sort of things. So I think really understanding that it's not about me and not to take myself too seriously has probably been one of the greatest pieces of advice. So when I do that well, it's great. So can't say that I always do. But
well, I love the fact that you brought up that we are human.
We are. Yeah,
It completely plays out when I do these episodes because I will say something stupid every single time, I'm sure. I've overstepped a boundary. So one of my friends are going to be like, you did not just say that. Of course I did. Yeah. Oh, no, we don't edit. It gets raw.
I like it.
Okay, so who have been some of your influencers? We also talk about, with business owners, we're kind of we're in the business so much. So it's hard to stop and go do a program. And I know that because I'm the program person. I make programs for people for coaching and things like that. But who have been some of your influencers over time?
Yeah, so I'm actually a member of a couple different CEO roundtable groups, and one of them, I call it the Get It Done, Got the T-shirt group, because they've already, achieved their success, and the wisdom that I get from that group is just phenomenal. Because if I would mention their names, they're leaders that we know in this marketplace that again have achieved success, and they're still hanging in there, giving guys like me advice and thoughts and ideas and all of that. So that's kind of a generic group that I'm saying there, but those CEO roundtable groups are really critical for me because there's a lot of like experiences going on there. So
I fully support the CEO roundtable concept. I used to run a couple, so yes.
Cool. So that's been really instrumental for me because again, there are things that I think I see, but I don't. And they're like, Jeff, do you realize this is going on? I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. I need to figure that out. But as far as people go, I've got a couple great, leaders that you'll recognize. Zig Ziglar has just always been such a
see you at the top.
Such a prominent, positive thinking, inspirational, mentor. Not personally, obviously,
right,
but mentor from that perspective. And then my wife and I are huge Dave Ramsey fans.
Okay.
So when I bought the business in 2013, one of the first things we did was go through the whole Ramsey deal to say, okay, we bought this. Did we really know what we're doing personally? And so just being able to manage finance and deal with that has been phenomenal. So I know I'm weird, but I listen to Dave Ramsey every morning in the shower. And so I can really,
Look, the only weird part was when you said in the shower. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I don't want Dave Ramsey with me in the shower. No offense to Dave Ramsey, however.
But those are some key mentors. And then there have been some, I'll call them anti-mentors that I've learned from in the past, but leadership style that I'm like, I don't want to be, I'm going to make this raw, the ass that's the leader. I want to really be someone that's supporting the team and, and building that culture that grows us. So
if you were to pick somebody from over time, like who would that leader be that you wanted to be like?
Wow. That's a great question. I didn't come ready for that one, Christy.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. You're just making me hunt a little bit on who that.
Well, this means it's a really good episode because I'm asking questions that are not on my list. Like I've referenced my list once.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. You mean as far as the anti-mentor?
Well, just any of them. Like who would you want it to be like when you grow up?
I don't know that there was one leader that I really looked at and said, man, I really want to be like them. There were pieces that I would take from different people. For example, the one negative example I was giving you was really Chuck Knight from Emerson. I don't know if you know that.
No, I don't.
Back in the 90s, there was a CEO of Emerson Electric.
Yeah, I know Emerson.
Yeah. So our process control company that I worked for was part of that organization. So here's his strategic planning session. Everyone shows up once a year with their plan to present to him. He purposely shows up late, lands his helicopter on the roof. So you hear him landing, okay? Gets out, lights a cigar, sits down, and proceeds to cuss out the person that's presenting the entire time. Most of the time, and it was usually the guys, would end up crying leading the planning session.
Oh.
Brutal. Just this brutal. And what he was trying to do was make sure you come prepared, make sure you know your numbers, and he was trying to build a better, stronger organization through that. Now, to me, that's the antithesis of what I wanted to be. There's a way to do that without that kind of deal. And I don't think there would be a leader today that would do that kind of approach.
And they wouldn't get away with it very long.
No. I mean, it's just, we're just in a different world for a lot of good reasons, for a lot of the right reasons. So I took away from that, okay, I understand we need to do planning, and I understand there needs to be pressure to make sure that the plans are well thought out, they're supported, they're meaningful, and somebody's really done the research. You can do that in a way that holds people accountable without that side of it. And so I would really start to search out ways to do that without that hard, I got to smack you upside the head kind of approach. You know what I mean? So, I guess some of the people that really kind of helped me in more recent years with that would be Simon Sinek, in the TED Talks.
Yes.
There's so many things in that side of things. And then who wrote Highly Effective, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? Stephen Covey. Another one. Yeah. I mean, again, I know these are off the shelf kind of individuals, but I looked at those kind of leaders and said, okay, this person's focused on trying to help people, trying to grow people, not just about let's get the strategic plan right and you're an idiot if you don't.
Exactly.
So,
let me just say, there's no right strategic plan.
Right.
There's only a direction. Everything else will change Plan.
Every year. For example, in 2020, when we were planning our 2020, we left that column out for pandemic. We left it out. So we just did.
I do joke with people now, and it's kind of not a joke. It's funny, but not funny. When you do the SWOT analysis, nobody before 2020 had global pandemic in that threat line.
Yeah.
Now everybody does.
Yeah. Nor on the opportunity side.
Right.
There's actually opportunity there as well.
There, especially whenever you are willing to learn technology and utilize it to its best opportunities, such as starting podcasts. Hello. So, okay, let's get back to business for like a hot minute, and then we'll work towards wrapping up. So as ECT Services and all of the things that you provide, what would you tell a business they would be a first starting point of, here's some things you need to look at for your building to make sure it functions that you don't have to worry about?
Well, it'd be more of a question. What are the things that you're frustrated with or concerned about? We use those words a lot on purpose because that's what will give you the idea of, okay, here's where I need to work. For example, this door always seems to be I just can't keep people out of this area. Or some of these logistics facilities are dealing with nice, bright, shiny things that people like to put in their pocket.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, we seem to be missing a lot of material. Or every year when we do our financials, there seems to be a larger loss number than what we're trying to deal with. So there are ways to handle that without it just being Big Brother watching. There are ways you can deal with those things. So right now, one of the biggest things is, again, how are you utilizing your space? Now, people tend to jump to the conclusion that, we're not going to need as much space because people aren't going to fully go back and all that sort of thing. We've got a customer, downtown Louisville, that actually needs more space. Because they're a call center, I can't do that from home. And I've got to make sure that I'm planning for the next pandemic that could occur. So I want social distancing between my queues, right? So now I need more space to make sure they've got protection and space and can get in and out well. So it's kind of interesting. There's some that are needing more space and certainly some that are needing less. So those would be some of the things that I would want to, building owner or customer to ask or answer.
We haven't talked about that aspect of the effect of the global pandemic. For those companies that need to have the people back in, need to also create more space for people. No more all up in each other's business.
Right. That's exactly right. That's it. I like you, but I got to stay away.
Right.
Yeah.
Which honestly is a comfortable way to do it. I'm glad to hear that, really, because I don't like people within my little bubble while I'm working.
Right.
And it does. Back in the old days, it still made me uncomfortable because if I need to be on a call, I like to be able to be myself, and I don't want somebody like monitoring that. And they would be right there.
Right.
Everybody's hearing everything. And I'm like, oof. Yeah. So that's good to hear. That's good. Okay. So, what question do I want to ask you next?
I don't know.
Okay. Let's go with the stories one. Because I do like a good story. Like, you've been sharing a lot of great examples and things like that. Has there been something that you've experienced with a company that has been like, this is one of our best stories yet? Like, this is a really cool thing that we did, or something funny. Like, we would have never thought of that in a million years until this happened.
Well, this isn't funny, but it's a technology that we've ended up dealing with that I would have never thought we would have dealt with. It's a little more serious than funny, actually. Back in 2016, one of our leaders went to a trade show for security system products and saw this product and thought, wow, that's really interesting. Came back to the office, was sharing it with the leadership team and said, what do you think? And we said, well, it might be something. And then the next 6 months, activities related to this technology just escalated. It's like, what is this all about? So he actually called the company and said, hey, we're interested in your technology. We'd really like to, represent it. And they said, well, we don't have dealers. We haven't gotten that large yet. And so we ended up working with them to develop their dealer network and became their first dealer. So here's what the technology is. And it's really unfortunate, but it's gunshot detection systems.
Oh.
Yeah. And so So it's an interesting story, not necessarily a funny story,
Right.
but it's an interesting story in that that has just gone crazy. And we don't understand what's going on with our society completely as to why that has escalated to the point that it has. But we just did a live demo in our office 2 weeks ago. We've done about 40 to 50 of these in our building because we have the technology there. We actually use a 9mm weapon with blanks, obviously. I used to say the sick joke, we're running out of team members. Horrible. But it's, yeah. There, I
sorry.
did. I know.
Pre-2020, you could get away with that a little bit.
So, yeah. So, but we're using blanks, obviously, to demonstrate how this works.
Yeah.
But one of the early adopters of this technology was a Toyota plant over in Georgetown. And so they've put the technology in to protect their team members. So the interesting part of that was it's not your typical, hey, we got a phone call from somebody who represents a product that wants a dealer in the area. It was just the opposite of that, which is kind of interesting. Again, it's amazing what happens when you show up.
Yeah.
He got an idea. And so we're just wrapping up actually putting that technology in the capital of Delaware, of all places.
Oh, wow.
So that's, to me, that's very interesting. And you might be sitting there going, wait a minute, you guys are in Louisville. Why are you putting something in Delaware? Well, another story, one of the interesting things that we did about 3 years ago was we finally started telling our customers, yes, we'll go out of this market. And that has completely changed our business. And in fact, last year we were in 26 states and 4 provinces of Canada.
Well, that happened quickly, didn't it?
Very, very. So it's like, wow. And it's not because we've targeted those markets. We've linked ourselves with clients that have multiple sites and want to standardize those systems across those sites.
That's nice and strict. That's a good high five strategy right there.
I wish we could have been smart enough to come up with it. So the reality is the customers asked, and we finally stopped saying no to, I want to do work in the Louisville area. So now it's created new challenges, obviously, of course, travel and working with subcontractors and some other things. But that's been a very interesting dynamic as we've grown and developed, to take on those multi-site customers.
What would you tell somebody who is ready to get out of their little marketplace into something bigger? Well, based on what you've learned so far, what kind of advice would you give on that?
Well, again, I always hesitate giving advice. I can always give my opinion. I'm 100% all over that. But as far as whether whether it works for them or not, the thing is, I think we were afraid. I think we were actually afraid to say yes.
Really?
Yeah. And I think the fear was, we wouldn't know how to do that. So I think part of what
I am so glad that you're saying this right now, because this is a theme of conversation I have with myself and other business owners a lot. So the fear, how did you guys did you do like a Richard Branson thing? Screw it, let's do it. How did you get over it?
It was by accident. It was purely by accident. We had a customer who said, look, we really need your help. And it's in California. And we trust you guys. You've worked with us in Louisville and you've done a great job. We just need you to come out here and take a look at this. And can you handle this? I mean, it was almost like, I don't care if you're afraid or not, get on a plane, come out here and take care of it. And so we're like, wait a minute, that worked. And we made money doing it, and the customer is thrilled. And it solidified that they were trying to do something standardized with what they were doing here. So we're like, maybe there's something to this, and maybe we can make this happen. Now, it had some problems, still does, in that, we've got to make sure we can deliver and that we've got the relationships across the country, because we don't have enough people to just go everywhere. Right. So we've got to have those subcontractor relationships set up. But I think we just put such a big roadblock in our head thinking, oh my gosh, if we say yes to that, we're now going to be competing with these national firms that do this every day. Well, they've got the same problem that we do. They just happen to have an office there, but they can't deliver any better than we can.
Yeah.
So it just, I think that we just get so hung up on our own fears, right? And I know I do. And so we just got to work through them. Okay. So say yes.
Side note. So my team and my own business, I've explained, we're at a place, everything is pretty stable, but now we're ready to level it up. And part of what I do in my business is I am a speaker and an author. I'm good at the talking part. I'm good at the out front. So I've told my team, I'm the commodity. I'm too close to this. I'm now in your hands. And they're gonna have their own little confab on Friday. But the first conversation I had with one of them was, yeah, you try to be too nice in your marketing with everybody. I'm like, what do you mean by too nice? Like, you cannot please everybody. Quit trying to do that, because the person that you're messaging is not the same person that you are on the podcast or in your client meetings or with us. They're like, quit being something different. It's slightly off. Like, you're just a little too nice. And I'm like, oh God, I can't wait to see what they come up with. We'll see how this, I'm like, gird up your loins, world, because I have no idea what they're going to do to me. So yeah, the fear aspect in business in general, especially if you're if you're driving the bus,
right?
We're supposed to know.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't know where to go. And
one of the greatest pieces of advice I got through one of my CEO roundtable groups, and this is going to sound so goofy when I share this, we had a really tough year in 17 and 18 because we screwed up some projects, and we really ended up with a couple upside down years there, and we'd never experienced that. And I'm sitting there going, okay, what have I done wrong as a leader? We're building this culture and building this business and growing this business. We lost money 2 years. What in the world am I doing wrong? So, and I'm sitting here freaking out.
Right.
So I'm going to my CEO roundtable. I'm like, guys, here, I'm all dark and down, and here's where we are. And so the guy looks across the table at me and he said, finally. I'm like, finally? What do you mean finally? He goes, you're experiencing business. I'm like, David, I said, what is that supposed to mean? He goes, you've been talking ever since you've been part of our CEO roundtable. And by the way, this is the Get It Done, have the t-shirt group already. He said, you've been talking since you've been in the CEO roundtable about how every year just notches up. He goes, no business ever does that. Life doesn't do that. It's not real. And so probably one of the greatest pieces of advice I got from that was, let's be real. Let's be real. Life doesn't always just work beautifully in a nice hockey stick. It just doesn't happen. So anyway, I think, learning that realness and getting through that fear, and leaders aren't supposed to have fear, right? That's garbage.
Look, I am Wonder Woman. Are you kidding? Right? I'm like, no. Only at certain times of the day. The rest of the time, I'm like, I don't have energy for this. I need to just shut down for a second. But yeah, we're looked at, especially if first of all, we've made it to that place, right? We want to serve our team. We want to make sure our team has everything. So they see the energy we're putting back into them, and then out into the public, into the world, to build and grow the business, to bring business in. We need to be that person that's all buttoned up and professional and this and that and the other. And then, that's why my team is like, just stop being that, because that's not who you attract anyway. Like, you don't need those people who think you have it all together. The people that you're attracting are the people who know that you're real and, catchphrase, authentic.
Yeah.
And they're like, because I get so many compliments on being direct. And I'm like, I don't know if it's a real compliment or not. Just saying. But they love that I'm very truthful. I get people that will come to me because I will tell them the truth.
Right.
I'm not nasty about it. I'm just like, are you on the right path or not? And I'm like, don't do that. Don't wear that. That is not good look for you, kind of thing. So
we all need that, though.
We all do need that. And that's why I love that you're part of these CEO roundtables, because especially if you're letting your guard down, you're being real. These guys are telling you, hey, welcome to the club. You're finally here. And I love that, first of all, you're sharing so much of what the inside of business really is, that we are our own stumbling block. Always.
Yeah.
That team matters over the employee on the paper.
Yeah.
That clients come first, because it's their frustrations that honestly help keep us in business, right? We're here to help solve their problems as a team. And just all of this conversation has been so great. So wrapping up, right? What does success mean for you, Jeff Murphy, President and CEO of ECT Services? What does success look like to you?
I'm already there. And what that means to me, what I mean by that is being in it, doing what we're doing. I thought when I bought the business, wow, I've done it. And the reality is,
you just got started. And dead.
And so it's like, no, you haven't done anything. So, I don't know that there's really a point where you get there. You know what I'm saying? But being in it is what I've learned is really, and again, watching these people develop and grow and seeing them excited about what they're doing and wanting to help and the stories that they tell and the things that we do. The impact that our leaders have on their team is huge. We were in a conversation about 2 weeks ago, and I'll make this quick. We were in a conversation 2 weeks ago with another business that was looking to partner with us and do some different things, and they wanted to understand more about our culture. I got to speak, before the rest of the team members came in, and then they all came in, the leadership team, and talked about each one of their departments. I actually started crying. And I'm like, what is going on? Because I felt like a proud dad because these guys were talking about all these stories of their team and what their team had developed into, just how they were able to be there and help them become fearless and do these things for customers and get involved. And I was just like, oh my gosh, these guys have not only just embraced in words the culture, that's it. That is it. So that's what it looks like to me is man, we've done something here that is beyond me and beyond us. It really will live on and do its thing, right?
I love that. Yeah. So by the way, have you guys made it to the best places to work list?
No, we have not.
Okay, based on this conversation, that needs to happen. So that needs to happen. You need an award for that because.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm more interested, quite honestly, in the team feeling that way, right? So
all they need to know is how to apply, how to put it in. Awesome. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Enjoy it.
Guys, didn't I tell you, wasn't that such a great interview? Oh my gosh. So all of the ways to connect with Jeff and to learn more about ECT Technologies is in ECT Services, ECT Services is in the show notes. Please go to the description, connect with them. You can find out all about the amazing things that they do as a business. But I love this conversation about leadership and culture and strategy. And it just, makes me feel good about the human experience. Like, this has been a great session. And so I would love to know your thoughts about this. Please leave us a review, preferably a 5-star review, but also connect with us. Facebook, YouTube, leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought about this. What are some insights that you gained from this episode? How will you apply some of this leadership conversation, the strategy conversation? What's culture look like for you? Like, how are you going to apply this into your own business? And maybe even, what is the fear that's holding you and your business back that you need to bust out of? So, he slapped me upside the head pretty good, in case you didn't hear that part. So I encourage you guys also, use your awareness, right? Your awareness strategically so that you can be a servant in your community, with your team, even with your family and yourself. Don't forget self-care for you, but also being able to learn to be more strategic and finding those opportunities as they come, grab them with everything you've got and follow that energy. Go for it. So I really appreciate your time, your continued subscribing to the channels. Comment, again, leave us a review. Let us know what your thoughts are. And if you have any questions that you would like to have answered on a future episode, please let me know those too. So with that, I've been your host, Christy Smallwood. Catch us on smallbusinesssmalltalk.com and have a fabulous day.